Hey everyone, what's up? Uh, this is something kind of new for me that I want to be starting, I guess. Uh, and I guess I'm doing this little blog in a way for me, just because I felt like it's been a while since I was properly sharing some elements of my life, and then I thought that maybe this could be an ongoing thing where uh, maybe I'm posting even online work that I'm doing and maybe talking about things I'm doing that maybe could be of interest to some people. So, so yeah, this is the first one. I've just started this thing of streaming both to YouTube and Facebook. Hopefully that part technically work. Hopefully there's audio. And let me know if you can hear me and if everything is correctly working. I will try to monitor both of the chats. This will be quite a challenging thing apparently, to have the camera control or the stream control and the chat stuff on two different chats on two different platforms. But yeah, so this is the gist of it. So trying to see if I can see the Facebook chat while this is happening. All right. All right, great. So Solid Waste the Band says that everything is good. So I'll just get going. Why not? So to sum things up, people who have been following my YouTube channel mostly, but I guess my Facebook as well, know a bit about my music maybe, and things that I was publicly posting. And indeed, for a while, I was really focused on that kind of content. And I still am. Like, I'm still posting new music once in a while. I'm still creating and all that. But in the last few years, I've found big love for development and music software development of sorts. And I was doing plugin development and all kinds of things around this plugin scene. And I was getting really heavy into programming and all that. And I thought that it might be cool to perhaps share a bit more of my life in that sense, not just product launch videos or something, but more of the process, and maybe even get technical and do some live coding and share a bit of my thought process, because there's a lot to it apparently, beyond the technical, beyond the part of getting the thing to get the plugin to play notes, respond to whoever is playing, show on the screen. There's a bunch of it that's actually related to me, I guess, and to what I want to do and why I do that. And there's a bunch of philosophical aspects to this. So I thought it might be cool to start this process of sharing and maybe do this in a I don't know, have you guys in my life while I'm going through this. So let's maybe go back a bit. So I started doing this programming thing about 6 years ago, around maybe 5-6 years ago, and I was working for mostly Waves back then. I was working for them for a few years, doing a few plugins, Polyverse, and then after that, I moved to working for Xfer, where I worked for a year and a half. And after doing the Xfer gig, which were both were really inspiring places to work, and I'll probably talk a lot about my experiences in those places and how they benefited me and what I learned and all that. So I started becoming independent. So I have my own company of sorts of creating plugins and music software, and I was kind of so my set of mind was that even though some plugins that I made, like the bass plugins for Waves and stuff like that, were my ideas and my creation. A lot of the plugins I made were not my creation, it was just things that I helped work on, like with the team, and maybe contributing code or technical ideas or solutions or opinions, whatever. But it wasn't my thing. And when I left Extra, I decided that maybe it's time for me to slowly evolve into my thing, right? My creations and my ideas, and not just being, a programmer or a team member helping to elevate someone else's ideas. Even though I still like both concepts. So, for example, when I'm I really like to offer technical solutions as well and kind of help people. And it's kind of like in music, I really liked doing the production side. I really liked to hearing somebody's song and maybe come up with a vocal part, or like a backing vocal part, or maybe do the technical sound stuff around it. So I'm really drawn to working with somebody else as well. Like, that's a part I really like. So even right now, when I have my own company, I'm still doing freelance, development for other people, and trying to make this development process be shared with also other people's ideas, so that I'm not too stuck on my own or in my own world. But I was trying to slowly make a change so that I am focused more on the concept of what I want to do. Oh, there it is. That's silly. Okay, so that got me thinking. Over the past few months since I left Extra, I started thinking more on what it is that I want to do. What kind of ideas excite me, and it's hard to focus on that, right? So I have like 7 million ideas, and I'll probably bring those up if this blog will be an ongoing thing. But I also have a lot of like really technical ideas, right? I really have ideas of how to solve solve the problem of MIDI control of things, or solve even a lower level problem of, creating an interface for GUI objects to interact on screen and do it in a very organized code way that allows for some features. So I have all these, I guess, messed up ideas in my mind. Some of those are just of interest to me. But it's also like product ideas that hopefully people will use, right? So I guess I'll take a bit of time to maybe share, and probably at some point I'll probably start doing a bit of live coding, so that there'll be real content into all of this. And maybe you, the audience, or whoever's bored enough to follow along, can join me in this journey, and can gain something by asking questions or by participating and all that. So I see that we have in our chat Robert as well, and Stan Eclipse on the YouTube chat, and we also have Alberto here on the Facebook channel. Probably few other people, but I can't really see people who are not actively participating, I guess. All right, so I will get a bit technical. So first of all, some news items. There was a plugin I worked on that was released yesterday, I want to say. It was something by Joel Deadmau5, and it is an OSC plugin. OSC is this open sound control format. It's a format for controlling things. And the cool thing about it is that you can use it over the internet, over network, and you can pass messages between devices. So it's not just data that you do within your own software. So it can control other things. And one of the things that Joel was using it for is to run his whole live show, right? Just like he has the crazy light show and animation show, and everything needs to be in sync and needs to be controlled from this unified place. And he wanted something that will make it all happen from the DAW, from Ableton Live or whatever software he's using. And he wanted those stuff to be in sync, right? So he wanted that if he does some musical thing, like have a song in a BPM and have it quantized to something, then he wanted the rest of his stuff, like the light and the animation, to respond to that. So that, for example, if he makes tempo changes during the song, he didn't want to have a lighting guy move the tempo slider or something along with the song. He wanted something that will stay quantized and will respond to live things that he's doing. So if my computer will work, we might even be able to do a bit of I guess a demo of that. So let's see what we got. So I just started to change the scene. Hopefully that caught on. Hopefully you see something that looks like my screen. So this is my code screen where I usually work. This is my IDE. And I'm going to start by building something. So here we go. So I build this little utility, and you'll see that I have a lot of these like utilities that I build for myself, and some of these will probably end up as products. In this case, I'm just building something that I guess will help show you what it is that the new deadmau5 plugin is doing. This is something called an OSC monitor. While this is building, Caesar Hoffman says that they've been thinking about me for a while and wanted to send an email. So first of all, I'm always happy to get emails and talk to people on any kind of social networking. So if you got something to say to me or questions or something, feel free to contact me. And I know that for people who were actively following my YouTube channel and the Project RNL YouTube channel and stuff like that, like definitely my release rate has been low. So I'm sorry about that, but hopefully this will start to change as I'm doing more of these videos and stuff. Hi to Ultra Wow 65. Nice to see you here. All right, so I'm going to run this thing called OSC Monitor. This will be a very beautiful empty box that will show OSC messages that are arriving from anywhere, pretty much. It monitors some network ports, so these messages can come from my computer or from other computers. And oh, look, a lot of awesome people in the chat. So hi Caesar, and hi Lior, and hi Mario. So wow, Caesar says that he's been listening to my stuff since 2011, which is amazing since it's now 2021. Quite ridiculous. But I'm happy to see that, my music somehow got to some people, which is, I don't know, pretty cool. That, a lot of things that happen in my life happen because somebody heard my song somewhere or watched my video and got inspired to do something or to contact me for something. That's really cool. I don't know. That's one of these things that you know, as a music creator, you feel, I don't know, you feel blessed for, because that's like the reason that you exist. And hi, Andy. I see Andy Stuttgart here. Is missing my music with Project RNL. I might be playing some songs, like maybe some Project RNL songs once in a while. I have my my keyboard here. Hopefully, it's audible of sorts. So I might, you know, take some time to, you know, go to my piano and maybe start some. I don't know, maybe something like, let's bring a piano sound. So I might play a few of those once in a while. Anyway, back to some software stuff while this is running. So this is just my boring wonder, and let me bring up something more interesting, like Ableton Live. Right. So in Ableton Live, I have this OSC Power plugin that shows up. This is the Deadmau5 plugin. It asks me for permission to send network messages, and here it is. So this is the plugin. This just came out. It's called OSC Power by Deadmau5 and his company. And so this thing, what this thing does, if I'm going to open my monitor, you'll see that it sends a bunch of messages. So I'm just going to move the Ableton window to the side so we can see both things at the same time. Here it is. So here's what happens, right? These are just a million messages. So the idea is that when Joel wants to do something on stage, he can just control everything that happens in his light show from here. So you can just move the sliders, and you can see that it will just send a bunch of messages with the numbers, right? And you can even do stuff like, let me clear that, and you can even do stuff like send MIDI notes. So if it plays notes, you can see that the actual notes I'm playing, well, you cannot see that, but the notes I'm playing from my keyboard shows up. So this is, you can see my hands, but I'm pressing like the G notes. And whenever I press the G note, it shows up here as a little light. And it also sends the note number and the velocity out to here. So Joel can use that to trigger some video effect whenever he plays that note, or the loudest he plays, it can trigger something. So it really responds immediately to whatever happens live. So you play, immediately you see some visuals. Unfortunately, I don't have any cool visuals from his show now. But you can also do stuff like, so for example, if you play just play the track, so if there was some track playing, so you can have it send the transport, right? So if I'm pressing play in Ableton, you'll see that all the different messages, it's scrolling down for some reason, not up, but you can see that it's sending, looks really funny because it's sending them down, but it's sending like at the right time, it sends all the different song positions. So like beat 1, beat position 28 is like the beat of the position in the song. So this is beat 28 and beat 1 in the bar and bar 8. So it gives you like the beat and bar positions. And this is cool because then you can sync animations to be really musical. So you can say, hey, this animation can start at bar 5 on the 3rd beat and move that way. And so this is really nice because then he, as a musician, can use this, right? And just as he's producing the song, he can, automate stuff like slider movements and whatever. And all of this will basically be saved as control messages for everything. So this is like a really convenient tool. it's not like you can hear anything. It doesn't make any sounds like other stuff that I'm doing, but it's really cool to like tie it all together, because somebody like him, and I guess other people too, want to be controlling their world from their music making software. They don't want to be, sitting on the stage and then, shouting to the other side of the room, to the lighting guy, hey, move the slider, and then maybe, coordinate that, or have another computer chaining things, in sync with the time. It's much nicer when it's from the same central place, and it will also respond to, if he wants to, speed up the song during the show, everything will kind of stick together and be very smooth. So this is just a very nice, convenient thing for this to, for people, especially people who are just like one-man bands, right? So it's really helpful for these kind of people to run live shows. I know that when we did the Project RNL tour, this would have really helped me, because all of our show was laid with a click track, right? And the click track would trigger all these, sound effects and sound changes in the keyboard and the guitar and stuff. And if we could also control, video that way, this would have been super cool. But it was not as easy, because whenever I added background video to the show, it had to be it meant that the show had to be fully in sync. There's no way we could speed up songs. There's no way we could slow it down. Everything had to be super quantized. And with something like this, I could maybe be a bit more fluid with, tempo and song cues, and be more dynamic in things that I wanted to do live. All right. Well, there's a bunch of questions on the chat. All right. So let's see what we got. First of all, I see that Alberto here says that he wears the Project RNL shirt right now. So that's awesome. Cannot believe people have Project RNL t-shirts. It's fantastic. So on YouTube, Andy asks, and he says, I never programmed music software. Are you using special libraries? Yes, and I'm actually probably going to go pretty deep into this. So I'm using mostly something called Juice. That's the main library I'm using. Juice is a C++ library. Most of audio programming is done in C++. And what Juice does is that it wraps all the things that are different from system to system. Because when we make an audio plugin, we have to work in Mac. We have to work in Windows. Sometimes we even have to work in Linux. We might want to work on a phone, right? It's totally different systems. We want to work with different DAWs, because people might produce music with Ableton Live, Cubase, Pro Tools, Logic. Sometimes people want to use plugins inside video programs like Final Cut Pro, Premiere. So we have to work with all of those and be compatible, right? In all the operating systems and blah, blah, blah. So Juice wraps all these different things, and that's really useful, because one of the hardest parts in programming is understanding what's the environment that somebody's going to be using your thing. And Juice gave you a common interface for everything, and there's very well defined classes and interfaces. So me as a programmer, I can come in and focus on what I'm doing, right? And I don't have to start digging into the VST specification or the audio unit specification, which is the Apple format. So it's definitely it definitely solves a bunch of problems. I might open and show a few things. So this is my my workspace, right? So I usually like to work in a workspace where if you look on the left side of the screen where I have my folders, so usually I'll have something like a shared library of sorts. So this is my toolbox. It's got a bunch of stuff in there. And here I have plugins, which is another let's call it another repository actually, that has a bunch of like apps and prototypes I'm working on, and stuff like the OSC monitor might be there. And here I'll have something like build tools. And I probably have a bunch of other repositories somewhere else on the drive, like with the Dead Mouse plugins, or code for companies like Pitch Innovation that I'm also helping sometimes, and other companies that I'm involved in that make different kinds of plugins. So this is kind of my my file structure. And if let's have a look at this as something like the maybe we can even build a plugin. I wonder if I can build one of the plugins here. So here I have a bunch of prototypes. There's nothing secret here. You'll see things like a BPM detector. That's a very straightforward name, I guess. You'll see things with a more cryptic name, like MIDI modifiers. That's something more interesting I'm working on that we'll get to at some point. I have something called Multi-Octave Mapper, which might be something cool to show probably in a few minutes. So some of these things are like really obvious and technical. There's also some apps here. I know there's some OSC monitor and ArtNet. It's another format, not ArtNet monitor. And I have some templates, right? I have some just boring templates that are just like stuff like things to help me get started, like console app template, right? It's just something that I might run to run testing. So whenever I need to test some code, I will throw some stuff in a console window to see what the inputs and outputs are doing, and run tests and stuff. So back to the plugin thing, let's take a look at how, maybe how plugins look like, I guess. So which plugins do I have here that could be interesting? Let's see. Which plugin will I show here? I guess this is pretty good. So this is something called the Multi-Octave Mapper. I'll probably go more deep into it because I probably want to release it pretty soonish. It doesn't do all that much yet, but it will do more very soon. So Multi-Octave Mapper was done to help me do something that I wanted to do when I was living in New York. So there was a period of time when I was living in New York and Project RNL weren't active. And I wanted to be doing some synth bass, right? So I wanted to be creating things that where I could, maybe I could have a drummer and myself playing, and maybe have a vocalist or somebody like maybe Tammy Sheffer that I was working with at the time. So I started to jam with myself using, just synth bass sounds. And I found out that there's one thing that's very hard to do, at least for me as a keyboard player, which is play the same note over and over, right? I would, like with a keyboard, if you just, swipe your hand across the keyboard, it's pretty easy to play fast. Like you can do, just play all the notes really quickly, just move your fingers. But if you want to play the same note, just, have the same note repeat, it's pretty difficult. Like it requires some finger bouncing. And even after you practice that for a bit, it's tiring. Like it's hard to play that way for a while. And if I wanted to play bass, a lot of my favorite bass patterns have like repeating notes. So I wanted something that will solve this without using any special technique or anything like that. So I made this MIDI plugin, which let's run it. Let's see if it works. Hopefully it works. I haven't tried it in a while. So this is using Juice, right? But you will see that so a lot of the types and things that show up here are a combination of Juice stuff and my stuff. So this is not like a tutorial on, for like beginners in Juice, but this is really how I work. In Juice, if you will see a lot of the templates, there'll be a lot more code in it, but I've found a lot of ways to hopefully hide some of the boring code and focus on the interesting code. Because usually, so here I have this class. This is a C++ class called Multi-Octave Mapper Processor, and it inherits from something called processor base, which is another one of my classes. And processor base is something that I created to hide a bunch of boilerplates. Processor base is inheriting from something called audio processor, which is a juice type. And audio processor is pretty much a plugin. So if you're a VST plugin, an audio unit plugin, or even a standalone application, you will probably inherit from this. This will give you like the common interface for access, for preparing for playing audio and for processing MIDI and stuff like that. So you'll see there's a bunch of functions here, and most of the functions will make sense. The base class or the interface will ask the plugin if they accept MIDI, or they ask the plugin if they produce MIDI, right? Or maybe they ask the plugin if they're MIDI effects, and they ask the plugin if they have an editor. An editor is like the GUI. And eventually it comes down to more interesting functions like the process block, or which processes the audio and the MIDI. So back to my plugin processor.h. I have those functions here, right? And the interesting stuff is that I've said that I produce MIDI because this plugin produces MIDI, and I have the process block, and I have some load and save preset functions. This is what happens when the user saves and loads a song. Oh, I'm just told that I was talking all this time and you cannot see my IDE, so I felt really stupid. Here we go. Hopefully now you can see it. Now I feel a bit silly. So good thing I looked at the chat. So thank you, Andy. So let me go back to doing things and not talking to an empty picture of myself. So back to the IDE. Now there's the processor. There's the audio processor class. This is my multi-octave mapper processor. It inherits from processor base. And here are all the functions, right? Here is accepts MIDI, produces MIDI, is MIDI effect and stuff like that. And here is my thing. So this is the multi-octave mapper. And here there's really a few functions, because I found out that most of the reason why I created processor base is I found out that a lot of this boilerplate is the same in almost all plugins that I'm working on. But these things are not. So that's why I overrode them. So this is my process block. And hopefully this will be high level enough for even somebody who just reads this for the first time to understand. So this, first of all, it makes the MIDI mono. I have this processor called MIDI to mono that is very common. That's because bass lines are mostly mono. And then it calls the combiner. I barely remember what the combiner is, but the combiner is really what this thing is doing. It's turning this a multi-note thing into a mono or repeating note, which we will hear in a second. It sets the note split position, which we'll hear in a second. It will make sense, and it processes it. So maybe we can see if that works. So I have not played this thing in a while, but we can probably do that. So let's try it. So here you go. I have the multi-octave mapper. It shows up, and you see the beautiful GUI here with two sliders. And let's get an idea of what this sounds like, right? So I'm going to load a plugin that makes sound, and I'm going to load something like. Hopefully this is installed here. Great. So I have one of the plugins I work for Waves. It's called Bass Fingers. I'm going to load it in here. It shows up, and great. Great. So I can play a few notes. Hopefully this gets sent out to the sound. Let's see if my mixer is sending things out correctly. Now it should. So hopefully you can hear the bass notes that I'm playing. This is a plugin I worked on with Orlo Bianiker from Project RNL. This was a very, very meaningful project in my life. And right, so this plugin is a really good bass sampler. I will probably talk a lot about that plugin over time, but so what I want to do is I want to play patterns that have repeating notes, like stuff like, but I want to play faster, like, and it's so hard to do on a keyboard. Like, as you can see, like, as I did it, I was starting to play louder just because I was not able to control. Like, playing soft for a while is very difficult, and it's not what comes natural to me as a keyboard player. Let me just go and change my buffer size something a bit larger so that my CPU will not go crazy because of the stream. Great. Okay, so what does this plugin do? So instead of now getting MIDI directly from my MIDI notes that I was playing, I am going to take the MIDI from this other MIDI channel and from Multi-Octave Mapper. Great. So let's see if I can get this to do something interesting. My keyboard is a bit small, so it will be pretty hard. Let's see if I can get this to work. For some reason it doesn't work. So that's one of the things that happens sometimes. Let's see why. I wonder why that didn't work. MIDI from, oh, this should go from, yeah, this should go from my keyboard, I guess. Nope, that failed completely. Never mind. Hopefully I can make this work some other way. This is the part where it gets fun, where things are not working, and I have no idea why. Absolutely no idea. So this will actually be a good opportunity for me to see why, because I've not touched this in a while. I'm going to debug this, select the VST3 thing, and maybe I will select something like Ableton Live in there. So one of the things I need to do is I need to find a way to investigate what happens here. This could be quite complicated. I have no idea how far this goes. Like, there's a bunch of abstractions. So this could fail in many different places. It's also possible that I've failed with the setup. Let's see. Let's see what could have happened with this. Let's remove this OSC monitor thing. And maybe for a start, what I could do is I could maybe debug the notes coming in, coming out. It would actually be a better start than even doing this. So I'm going to I should have something like a MIDI. Should have something like a MIDI debugger, probably. Something like MIDI. Something like a MIDI debugger, right? MIDI debugger. Buffer debugger, debugger buffer, debug buffer, something like that. Let's see. So it should be somewhere around here. Here's all my code. Let's go into my audio MIDI utilities. Oh, here we go. Log MIDI. That's what I should have done. So this is just something that logs the messages that come in. So let's do something like MIDI, log MIDI. Let's log the input. This will be interesting. And then let's log the output, which is right here. Will be a good start. So what this thing should do, by the way, is that it should transpose notes that are coming in about like an octave or two down or up, and then it will make the notes in my keyboard basically match. So I could have the same octave like a bass player would have, you know, when they played just the same note, but I can play two different notes on the keyboard, and then I can play something more bouncy with my hands that doesn't require all that, you know, really awesome piano technique, and it will still work. So let's see what happens. That's interesting. Oh, I need to define a MIDI input. I have the MIDI input, which is here. Here we go. So, right, great. So this is it. So I'm playing notes. Looks like the notes coming in are the same notes coming out in all these modes. So this is definitely not working correctly. What you should be seeing is that when you split something, things above the split notes, so in this case, everything should transpose down, and that did not work. By the way, hi Dida from the chat. Dida saw us from saw Project Ornell live in Greece, which is awesome. I loved playing Greece. We played 2 shows there. It was awesome, like one of the coolest places. So let's see what could be buggy here. So I'm gonna guess MIDI to mono work fine. So I'm just gonna look at this combiner thing. This combiner thing is really a process. So this thing is a base class that I created for MIDI processors. And let's see what could this have done wrong. So this process should do something pretty simple. So if this is note on or off, right, it calls handle note event. Handle note event says that if it's above the note split position, it adds or reduces the interval. So this should be pretty straightforward, hopefully. And then it adds the MIDI message back to the buffer. So this sounds pretty simple. This sounds like this should work, but maybe it doesn't work. Let's take a look. So the first thing I will see, I guess, is I will test if that was ever hit, right? If this condition ever did what it was supposed to, like, was the note ever bigger than the note split position? That would be an interesting thing to find out. Take a second for that debugging to work. Right, running the plugin, and I'm going to press notes, and I got in. And what does interval say? Interval is minus 24. So that sounds like it's correct. So it should be reducing the number in here. So that looks pretty correct in a weird way. So that it looks like it called that. Message was changed by this function, so it looks like it was modifying it, and it was adding the message to the buffer. But it does seem like, for some strange reason, when I look at this console window, it was not changed. Let's see why. What did I miss that made this kind of stay where it is? Something is somehow missing and not processing as I would think it's processing. So instead of C2, this should have been something, whatever, 2 octaves lower. let's see, what did I miss? So buffer clear, process message. So this is the base class. All it does is that it abstracts the thing about clearing the buffer, for loop over the MIDI messages, and then swapping the buffer with the temporary buffer, right? So basically, the idea is that the derived plugin will create this temporary buffer, and then it will change this. So by the way, a few things in the comments. So hey, Miguel. I love that Miguel is getting into the C++ programming. I'm very much into that. UltraWow says, what if you could make it so the note is repeated when you use the bending wheel? So this is actually a really cool idea. I did not think about it. So this is really interesting. So I'm guessing, and I'm just thinking about this right now, right? We could definitely set the pitch bend so that maybe there's like some I guess notches in the pitch bend. So maybe we can say that the middle is nothing, and then as you go up, there's maybe the size of the pitch bend is like divided to whatever, like 10. And then as you move up, you can have it repeat the same note or something. That would actually work pretty cool. The thing that would be hard is to control the timing, right? That's a very interesting way, because it's hard to adjust your finger so that you know exactly the time of the next note, if it's because the pitch bend is like very continuous, but it would work. So I have to say that it's very possible that if I could train myself to move my fingers to both sides of the pitch wheel and treat this as rhythmic events, it would work, right? And actually, I guess it would really work if you do stuff like a MIDI delay or something, right? So maybe, as I move left or right, it kind of moves in tempo, faster or slower. So that would absolutely work. Right. So Andy says perhaps swap with does not work, right? So that's very possible. Swap with is a juice function. So I'm gonna bet that there's a good chance that it's fine, right? So I'll probably doubt my own code before I'll doubt library code. There's a better chance that I've had a bug somewhere around here. So this swaps this with the temporary buffer. So I'm going to assume this function does work just because I have other code that uses it. So not that it's not possible, it's actually very possible that it doesn't work. There's a bigger chance that something here in my code, right, in my one of these functions, I've missed something really, really stupid, right? So it would be so interesting to see what this could be. Let's see. Probably something about like not modifying the thing by reference or something like that. I don't know, something like that. I forget. Like, so this is a modifier. This takes a MIDI message by reference and should be modifying it. And so for a start, I'm going to see that, let's debug the message that comes out here or something. So let's say I'm going to log, so I think I just debug or log. Log is my function. That's nicer than dbg. And maybe I will just log something like current message.get description. So let's just log and see what did it do after it was processing the message. That'll I guess get me closer to see if the bug is in my logic, or maybe it was in my or maybe it was in the code that calls this code, right? So here you go. Oh, this is interesting. So you can see that this code actually did drop this by 2 octaves, right? I put in a C2, I put out a C0, and then eventually the plugin outputted the same note. So the bug is definitely somewhere over there in the buffer handling. Miguel says, does the swap inside by reference, or you should reassign the return value? That's a good question. I think it swaps like internal pointers. We can actually look. So I think that's what it does. So what I thought that what I was hoping to do in this case, where's my function, process function? So what I was hoping to do, I was hoping this base thing would grab a message, pass it into the derived class, right? And then swap a buffer that was built in the derived class with the input buffer, right? So, and this should change. Like this should mean that this is changing with the temp buffer. But let's have a look and test what I'm saying, because it's very possible that I'm wrong. So why don't I do MIDI log MIDI, and let's just log this buffer right before it comes out. That would be an interesting experiment. So playing this note, let's play. No, it doesn't seem to do anything. Yeah, it definitely looks like whatever buffer was here was not changed to what I thought it should be changing. Right, here's F. It's still the same note. Nothing is changing in this note. So I definitely, most certainly, doing something wrong in this buffer thing. So there's a chance that I've did stuff like, I don't know, maybe I added something else called buffer or something silly like that. Let's keep this log thing and let's see exactly what I did in the octave combiner. So it does look like I'm getting a message and adding it to the buffer. That part looks pretty correct, I would assume. Takes a MIDI message, add that with the sample position. But the interesting thing that happened now is that this log also seemed to have got it wrong and not what I hoped. Let's debug again. Let's debug so I can pause on breakpoints. This is the interesting stuff about live coding. You have no idea where bugs come from. Like, this could be a rear configuration problem. This could be anything. I might sit for 2 hours to find this bug, but it's fine. That's how it should be. So yeah, it definitely looks like this is getting cold. My interval is getting past. It is -24. When I get here, this did reduce what was supposed to reduce. So that part works. And then I go out, I end the loop, and the buffer that I was logging did not have the message in it. That is very interesting. So that definitely implies that there's something wrong with my my buffer addings. I was hoping that this buffer is correctly added, but it's not. So let's look at the process message function, which is here in the octave combiner class. So it inherits from MIDI processor. MIDI processor has the buffer. I don't see any other stuff like buffers here. Maybe I get confused with the name buffer. Maybe there were two buffers. Doesn't look like that what happened. But it definitely looked like whatever happened here. Let's log the buffer right here and see what happens after I added stuff to it, right? So, because it definitely looks like I was not adding, or I was not pushing to the buffer. Oh, that's what happened. Here it is. So I'm just too tired, so I cannot see. I added the original message in there instead of the current message that I was modifying. So here's my bug. The bug is that I was just being blind and stupid, and I was not noticing all of my variable names while I was looking at it. It also probably means that my naming is confusing, like message, current message. They're all so similar. You'd think that I would notice because the colors are not the same, but I guess not. It's one of the things about programming. Like, you realize how stupid you are pretty much all the time, and how much stuff like your little brain can miss. So I'm going to guess this will actually work correctly now. Here you go. And yes, you see now I have E2 entering, E0 exiting. That looks very good. So this was my bug. And I'm going to just remove all my logging functions and, or you know what, perhaps let's keep the logging functions and just play sounds. So now we'll see, why did I do all these stupid debugging? There's probably a reason. So hopefully some legit sound will come from this, and this will not be a useless affair. All right, so let's do the whole thing from the beginning. I'm going to go here. I'm going to load the waves bass fingers so that I will have a sound source. So I'm going to drag this into here. Wait for it to load. Looks nice. Sounds nice. And let's close that. Go over here and load my wonderful, not by waves, but by me. There's the Multi-Octave Mapper plugin. And now I will ask bass fingers to grab input from there, from this Multi-Octave Mapper. Oop. So that's interesting. Once I loaded the plugin, things went crazy. It blocked all the sound, which is not what I would hope would happen. So this is interesting. That means I probably have some other configuration bug. Let's see why. Let's see why. So I'm going to attach the debugger to Ableton Live. This bug probably happened because I refactored some stuff and didn't notice it. Who knows? Like, this could come from a million things. It's just such a weird oversight, right? All right, so Andre asks, maybe do buffer swap with MIDI buffer. Well, I think the buffer thing is working. I think it's fine because that buffer code is used in other places, in other code that I'm using. So I'm like, it's always good to investigate if I have bugs, but it's also likely that if that part of the code would fail, other plugins that I'm working on that use this code would also fail. So, and it doesn't seem to be the case. But now it looks like I have some other bug, and I'm not sure which one it is. So let's see. I'm just going to load the plugin. Oh, here it is. Controllers. Oh, that's what happened. So it looks like this keyboard is setting like an infinite amount of controllers, and my logging function was not happy about this. Like, it was just driving, I guess, the sound crazy with all the logging. So I'm just going to remove all the logging functions. Yeah, let's see where. Let's look at my git diff to see where else did I log. So this changes what I intended, and this is another log that I don't care about anymore. I can just roll back the changes to this code so that my only changes are the changing of the variable name so that it does the correct thing. And let's build this plugin again. Hopefully it will not freeze audio on the entire DAW right now. I'm going to guess that that was it because it did pass MIDI before. So it looks like a bug that we just introduced live. Okay, so Hagai is asking why adding message and not current message. So it looks like he saw the bug before I noticed it. So Hagai, you found the bug. I was just being blind, I guess, and not noticing things that are similar. And it's really, I know it happens to me all the time when I look at code and things are similarly named. Like, my eyes will get confused by the two. I don't know if that happens to you when you read text, but it's like it's hard for me to notice. Like, even if the colors are different, like here, I might, my brain will fill the blanks. Like, my brain will tell me that the correct thing happened. And what I need to do is kind of tell my brain, no, the correct thing didn't happen. Like, just like pretty much you guys did when you said, hey, this could be swap with, or this could be this. Like, I'm immediately thinking that everything is what I intended, right? I have confidence in my code, but that's wrong, right? I probably should doubt more, right? Doubt more and test these. Make sure they're right. So let's look at the thing, and this is called Multi-Octave Mapper. Let's load something like the waves, bass, fingers. Now it looks like audio is not frozen in Ableton, so I'm going to ask MIDI from the plugin and not directly from the keyboard. And now I do get MIDI, so things are not frozen. And oh, now it works. So here's what happens. I'm going to go up the notes. Here you go. So I was going up, but then suddenly it was going down. So why does this exist? This exists because what I wanted to do, here you go. So now you can see my hands, but I have one hand playing like a high E, the other hand playing a low E, but they both output the same. And that means I can move my hand like this. So I can do and it's really cool because I can play really fast licks. Like let's make this thing an octave down, like 40 something. Here we go. So I can do stuff like so. That stuff is so hard to play without using this, right? So I can even play like metal stuff, like I would have never been able to play this without this plugin, right? I can really riff like as fast as I'm playing because this movement is so easy. Like I'm literally doing this for like a child kind of. So this is this plugin, right? I actually thought that it's pretty cool that maybe I should give it like a nice GUI and release it. I don't know if you guys think it's cool or not. So Ultra Wow says interesting how it worked in the past. So what probably happened is that code worked sometime, and then I refactored some things, right? Like it's possible that this whole like base class thing did not exist, and I decided that it's a good time to create it. And maybe I just kind of glanced over it. It seemed correct, and maybe I wasn't testing fine enough. Like it's very possible I do that sometimes, and as you can, like nobody's testing it. There's no users to this thing, so it's possible that I was testing it, didn't notice that it broke. Maybe I was jamming with an older version that did work, so I didn't notice. There could be a million things, but yes, this it definitely was the wrong thing to do, and some manager in the company should have noticed it and fire me. But I cannot fire myself at the moment, so. Hopefully this was not the wrong thing. So there's a couple of cool people in the chat. So first of all, the Isaac is here. So hello, the Isaac. And also I see Michael here. And yeah, so you've just seen me, kind of solve a bug. In real time. It's really boring bug. But the interesting thing about why the process, I guess, is interesting is it's definitely important to look at these things, and whenever something like that happens, see if there's something we could do to have it not be masked by something, right? So one of the things that I like in code is that, especially when something happens all the time, we can try to solve this problem in a central place so that the chances of it breaking are slimmer, if it makes any sense, right? So in this case, the buffer swap stuff I'm using in other plugins. So I was, even though it could break, and very well, like it's very possible, like that was one of these problems that I've solved. I've solved the problem of how to modify a MIDI buffer. You need to add stuff to the MIDI buffer and then do the swap, right? It's just such a simple problem to solve. Just because Juice introduces this thing where you got to use another buffer, and you want to still like have the original always there because you need the sample positions of the notes to bring into the new buffer, blah, blah, blah. It also like, it solves like boring other problems, like the fact that this temporary MIDI buffer thing is actually a MIDI buffer, but with a reserved size, so that unless you have more than 1,000 messages in a block, then memory will not be allocated. And I could probably make this 10,000, by the way. So this is, I mean, it's definitely possible that more than 1,000 messages will be there. But anyway, the idea is that it was more likely that the problem was in my code, right? Because because if I had the swap thing in my code, in my combiner code, then it's very likely that I would have gotten that wrong too, right? I might have messed up some semantic, or I would copy instead of move, or whatever, something like that could go wrong. So here it was good for me because I was like, when I see this code, right, this octave combiner processor code is just like 4 functions. So the chances of this breaking somewhere else are slimmer, but there's a good chance of one of these lines of code break. And when it is, it's scoped, right? The bug is here. It's not like all over the code. Sometimes when the code is way too involved, there's a lot of like different moving parts. It's very common that I will need to like log everything like we did now, right? But even more, like I would need to log the GUI code. I will need to log the processing code, file loading, preset loading. Each of those can, be buggy, system stuff. Like so it's really good for me that the bug solving is, I don't know, it has some boundaries to it. All right. So I've been doing this for a while. So I don't know if you guys enjoy this. I really want to do more of these, maybe even longer sessions of me programming things. I have some ideas for things that would be cool to do that I'm now working on. I'd be happy to know, what you're thinking. What do you, if you think this is a nice format, if it's interesting in any way. Yeah, so definitely hit me up on comments to this, and I will read all of those. So I'll probably make this a regular thing because it gives me good feedback, and it's, I don't know, kind of feels nice to not stare at code. It's nice to stare at code with a chat window. So it's a better experience. Great. So if anybody has some questions, one last thing. So Miguel says that he would gladly buy a video course on this programming. So that's cool. So that's actually something that I might consider doing. I mean, so for some time I was, doing tutorials full time for a company called Mac Pro Video. That was like my gig for a while. So I don't know if like I could commit to being like a full-on trainer, but maybe if it's something like this where people, interact and ask questions, and so that's I know that's cool. Like I like that, and also I like the associative part of this where people like kind of throw ideas at me, like who said that I should do the delay with the wheel. This is in my head because I'm thinking now what could make this possible. Like do the note with a delay. So I love that. Like I would have never think about this by myself. So this will now be like the lead thought in my evening. Dida asks, did you study computer science? No, I did not study computer science. I am completely self-taught in computers. I did spend a long time in the last few years studying C++, reading code, looking at lectures, reading books, not just about C++, but about programming in general, but specifically about this. So I feel like I have a good understanding of what it means to, I don't know, write a container or write some real-time system or write a plugin. But there's still obviously a lot that I can learn, right? So sometimes I do these things and experts come and they, show me things that I was I was not aware possible. So hopefully this was beneficial to somebody. I'll probably do more with more, I guess, with the more concrete subjects. But thank you all, for joining me. And see if there's somebody else who wants to say something. So Linus looks like says is interested to watch. Linus is from Sweden. He's also involved with a project I'm doing for another company now as a freelance. And he's a very good audio engineer who studies programming now. So glad to see that you're on board. And brilliant. So thank you all so much. I will probably do more of those in the next few days. So stay tuned. Thank you so much.